guys, my name is Bethany and this is a Faye in the Life. Today I'm going to be making king cake. Mardi Gras is fast approaching and king cake is actually one of my favorite treats. My dad is from New Orleans, so growing up we would always get a king cake and I always looked forward to it. Traditional king cake is high in sugar and therefore high in points, so I wanted to try to make a lower point version so I could enjoy it this year too. It does take a little while to make because you have to let the dough rise, so let's get started. In the bowl of a stand mixer, combine a 1/4 cup of water and 2 teaspoons of yeast. Let it dissolve completely and then stir in 1 stick of butter, a 1/4 cup of milk, 2 large eggs whisked together, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Add in 3 cups of flour and stir until it forms a dough. Keep the remaining 1/2 cup of flour in case you need it. In the stand mixer, using the dough hook attachment, knead the dough on low speed for about 5 to 7 minutes until all of the flour works in and the dough comes together in a ball. It'll be smooth and elastic, but dense, more like Play-Doh consistency. You can also turn the dough out onto a lightly floured countertop and knead it by hand for about 10 minutes. If the dough is still sticking to the bowl, hook, or your hands, add a little bit more of the flour until you can make a well-incorporated dough. Take a bowl and coat it lightly with cooking spray, and then shape the dough into a ball with your hands and put it in the bowl covered with plastic wrap. Let the dough rise in a warm place in this bowl until it's doubled. It takes about an hour. Once your dough has risen, go ahead and scrape it out onto a lightly floured counter. Flour your hands as well and pat the dough into a rough rectangular shape. Then use a rolling pin to roll the dough out into as close of a rectangle shape as you can. Once your dough is rolled out, use a spatula to spread 4 tablespoons of butter into a thin layer all over the dough. Leave a 1/2 inch border at the top of the rectangle. Go ahead and whisk together 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar and 1 1/2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and then sprinkle it evenly over the butter. Press it into the dough with the palms of your hand so that it helps stick. Take your dried bean or pecan half and place it somewhere in the dough. Once you roll it up, it's going to be hidden inside. If you're using a plastic figurine as the baby in your cake, wait until after it's baked before you add that in. With the dough, start at the long end that's closest to you and roll it up carefully towards the top. Once it's rolled up completely, pinch the dough closed and roll it over onto the seam. Curl the log of dough into a spiral and overlap the ends slightly so that it's the same height all around. It'll be a sort of oval shape. Pinch the dough lightly where the ends overlap in order to seal it. Line a baking sheet with parchment paper or a silicone mat. Transfer the dough to that sheet. Cover the dough loosely with plastic wrap and let it rise again for an hour. About 30 minutes into the dough rising, place a rack in the middle of the oven and preheat it to 350 degrees. Once the dough has risen for the full hour, go ahead and place it into the oven and bake until it's lightly brown on top. This will take about 30 to 40 minutes depending on your oven. Once it's done, pull the cake out of the oven and let it cool for a few minutes on the baking sheet before transferring it to a wire cooling rack. Let it cool completely to room temperature. If you're using the plastic baby, gently push it into the underside of the cake so that it's hidden. While the cake is cooling, go ahead and prepare your icing. Place 1 cup of powdered sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract, and then add in 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk. You're going to whisk these together to create a thick but pourable icing. If you need more milk, add in 1/2 tablespoon at a time until you get the right consistency. You can always divide the icing into 3 parts and then color it, or you can just leave it white if you're going to use colored sprinkles or sugar on top. I'm using colored sugar, which I'm making myself. I added food coloring to the sugar and mixed it until it was uniform in color. Once the cake is cooled, cover the cake with the icing. If you're decorating it the way I am, using the colored sugar, you're going to add the icing onto the cake and then immediately start adding the colored sugar in stripes, alternating between purple, green, and yellow. Let the icing dry completely before serving. If you're not serving it right away, cover it loosely with plastic wrap and store it at room temperature. Then when you're ready to eat it, go ahead and cut it into equal servings and enjoy. You can keep the sliced cake or leftovers in an airtight container at room temperature for a couple of days. If you find the hidden pecan or the baby inside of the cake, that means it's your turn to buy the next one. Or in this case, make one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today and maybe even try your hand at making your own king cake. I'm looking forward to enjoying this one over the next few days. And as they say in New Orleans, let the good times roll. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every week and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye!